Better? Well, I was going to say welcome to the post-lunch presentation, which is always fun, but I got lucky. It's before lunch, so now you're just waiting to eat, so yay! But thank you guys for being here. I am very excited to be here. I've actually been here for a whole week, and I love Melbourne. This has been an amazing trip. My husband came with me, and we have done everything I think you could possibly do in a week span, so I'm pretty exhausted, but I've had a really, really good time. It's a beautiful city. So if you're here today, I'm Bekah Rice. I am with True Matter. We are a UX consultancy in South Carolina. So yes, 20-hour flight to get here, totally worth it. Not looking forward to the flight back. But we do everything from full builds to usability consulting, testing, you name it. Lots of fun stuff. Today we're going to talk about usability testing, specifically how we can do it when we have no time and no budget. During a usability test, we ask people a series of questions and ask them to do a series of tasks based on those questions using a digital product. We observe them like scientists, we note patterns, and then we take those patterns and make them into actionable changes that allow us ideally to improve our product, and then we repeat the whole thing over again. In an ideal world, we are all doing this regularly, testing our products with the real people that will use them. In reality, this doesn't always happen though, because we know it can be difficult to find the time, it can be difficult to find the budget especially, and resources in general. That doesn't give us an excuse not to try though, so we're going to look at some different methods here that allow us to test just about anything. This will apply to web apps, to sites, to holographic interfaces of the future, you name it, this will work. Ideally, we're testing before we get to development, so we're going to kind of frame this as we're in that state, but you can always test after. This is a type of method that you could use throughout your working process. It can be for existing products or something that you haven't even started building yet. You don't need to spend months and months planning this. You don't need a lot of time. You don't need a lot of people involved, just a few basic steps. Like any good DIY project, we have 8 steps. I tried to get it to 5. It did not work. But this, again, will work for just about any type of digital product, and you will come away with qualitative data that you can use to improve your product. Starting with step 1, you need something to test. This is the most obvious of the steps, but it can mean a lot of different things. This doesn't have to be a full-blown, completely built-out product. It can be a sketch. It can be a paper prototype. It can be a more advanced prototype in a tool like Figma or Axure. Or it can be the real deal. Maybe you've built something, you want to see how's it going? What can we do to improve the next phase of this product? If you're not testing with the real thing, perfectly fine. But there are some things that you need to keep in mind with whatever you choose to test. It has to be as real as possible, depending on what it is. So paper prototype obviously is not going to be the same as using an app or website in reality. But if you are building or are testing something that you've built, you want to make sure that it has as much of the full context as possible. It doesn't have to have every screen or series of steps that might be in a process, but it should at least have the ones that you're testing. Otherwise, we don't get to really see what a user would do if they have the full ability to explore the product. It also won't allow us to see what happens when they fail. That is probably the biggest takeaway I hope you gather from this is if we can't see users fail when they use our product, we're not really learning much of anything. So here today, we're actually going to do a usability test at the end of this talk, and we are going to test something that I helped build over 12 years ago that is actually being redesigned right now. So this is for a regional hospital in South Carolina, and it's due for redesign, so it's going to be great to see all the things that we got wrong in the first design. Our next step is to create a list of tasks. So for any given test, we want to have a series of things for the user to complete. We want to make sure that these are real-world tasks, depending on who our user is. So if this is someone that has a local utility company and they pay their bill online, you would want to then recreate that context. If it's someone that doesn't pay online, they write a check and mail it in, they're not going to be a good candidate for testing an online bill pay system. So make it a real-world task that they would do on a day-to-day basis. You also want to make sure you phrase each task as a question. We'll talk about how we write these here in a minute, but it's very important that you leave them kind of open-ended because we don't want to guide the user right out the gate with a question that tells them exactly what to do. You want to make sure your list is short because, again, we have very little time in this scenario. And you want to prioritize your tasks based on the most important one to the least important. It's very unlikely that you'll get through all of the tasks with each user. Sometimes people take longer to complete a task, sometimes they're very quick. So here's the task that we're going to be testing today. And I've written it very specifically to allow the user to complete what I want them to do, but also fail, and also not use any words that are in the UI that could give them a clue as to what I want them to do. So I'm setting them up by saying that they've moved to a new town. This kind of creates a scenario that's more believable to them, because if I ask them, go make an appointment with a doctor, they might say, well, I already have a doctor. I don't need to do that. So we're telling them they just moved, they need a new doctor, they're not going to drive back to their old city to see their old doctor. We're kind of leading them in that way. And we're also letting them know that they want regular care. So I didn't use the words general practitioner, primary care. I just wanted to use something very vague and open so that, again, they're not going to see these words in the UI and then be led down the path that I want them to take. We also added physicals because that's something that is very common that, again, they can kind of imagine themselves going to do. And then we mentioned the actual website we want them to use. And this might seem kind of silly, but there have been many user tests I've been in where if we didn't either put the website in front of them or tell them to use it, they just go to Google. So they'll just type in doctor in my area, and then we never see them actually test our product. This is a very realistic scenario that does happen. So the next thing we're going to need to do is find some people to test with. In a full-blown usability test, we would recruit total strangers. They would be vetted with a series of criteria. In the world of DIY, we work with what we've got. So this means we have to find people that have time and that are not related to our product in any way. And when I say that, I mean they can't be anyone that has worked on the product. The worst person to test with is a stakeholder in that product. You don't want anyone that has skin in the game involved in your user tests because they will wreck it. You don't want any developers testing your product. They are the worst users to test because they will break it. They will find the bugs. Unless, I will say, caveat, if you build tools for developers, yes, test them with developers. But that is the one outlier in this case. You also want to make sure that you don't test with what I call digital power users. Again, unless your product is for more sophisticated users like web developers or something like that, you want to test with kind of a diverse group of people with different experience with technology. So for me, if I'm testing something like a hospital site or a utility bill pay type situation, I'm going to try to find people from different backgrounds, different age ranges. My grandma is a really great candidate because she does use the internet from time to time, but she's not what I would call a power user. So I can see kind of across the spectrum what people in different situations might do with the product. The types of people you do want to find are anyone in an unrelated department. If you are lucky to work within a big company and you have, say, an accounting department, grab someone from there that doesn't know about the product, that is still maybe someone that's used to using technology, but again, doesn't have any stake in what you're doing. Family and friends are really good. As I mentioned, my grandmother, my mom is really good for this kind of thing. She doesn't work in tech, but she has world experience like paying a bill, going to a hospital. So she can relate to these things, and I can gain some type of information from seeing her interact with these things. Anyone that would use your product is ideal. Obviously, like I said, we want to set this up to be as real as possible. So if someone does go to Lexington Medical Center, if that's their hospital, great. They should already be slightly familiar with it. If they've never been there, that works too. Everyone needs to go to a hospital. Well, hopefully you don't need to, but at some point you've experienced going to a hospital or visiting someone. So really, in that scenario, anyone will work as long as they have some familiarity with the healthcare system. But like I said, if you are a utility company customer, you don't pay your bill online, don't test that scenario with that person. You want to make sure that it's as real as possible, but also leave yourself open to seeing different situations, different types of users using it. Lastly, people who aren't tech savvy. I already kind of talked about that. But that really allows you to see, are your assumptions about how someone interacts with maybe a control that's slightly more complex or a form, were they correct or were they wrong? You do want to vary by age and ethnicity and background as much as possible. Food is a great motivator. You're probably asking yourself, how do I get these people to sit down with me for 15, 30 minutes? Well, bribe them. So we don't have a great budget for our DIY test here, but we can order someone lunch or a coffee, and hopefully they will give us their time in exchange. You can also test with 5 users. There's a really great article by Nielsen Norman, kind of the father of UX, that says, or a study he did that basically showed for qualitative testing, ideally 5 to 10 users is best, but if you only have 5, you can still walk away with useful insights. So this is Adam. He will be our user today. He is 39. He's an artist in warehouse tech, part-time model, and he uses an iPhone, so he will be our test subject today. Next thing we need is a space. So when looking, you can wave. So when looking for a space, you want it, again, to feel as real as possible. So if someone is typically engaging with your product from their home, like their desk, set up a desk environment, get a plant, box of tissues. It can go a long way to make them feel more comfortable. You want to make sure it feels like their environment as much as you can. That can be tricky, especially if we're testing, let's say, in our own office. Putting them in a cubicle is going to feel strange for them if they don't do this type of thing in a cubicle. But whatever you can to make them feel at ease. One of the things I'll talk about more in detail here is, in general, when we're doing user testing, it feels very awkward because you're asking someone to sit there, do something that they may do every day, but they certainly don't do it with someone sitting over them and someone else taking notes while they do it. We also ask them to narrate their thoughts, so it's just a very awkward situation. So anything you can do to disarm them, to make them feel more comfortable and at ease, goes a long way. And a big way to do that is with the environment that you set up. So this can be, like I said, an empty cubicle in your office. It can be a conference room. If you're lucky enough to be able to do it outside of the office, you can go to that coffee shop, get them that cup of coffee, and they can do it there. So if it's something where they're typically engaging with your product on their phone, that's great because you can really test just about anywhere in that case. We are in this room, so we're going to do it here. 4th step, almost there. We want basically free equipment if we can get it. So what I mean by that is maybe use their phone or their laptop if they're gracious enough to let you. For this type of test, you really just need to be able to see what they're doing. So if it's on their device, that's perfectly fine. If you have your own device that you want to use, your phone, your laptop, that's great too. The biggest thing is you want to make sure that you can see them and see them using the screen. If you can step it up a notch and record it, we'll talk about that in a minute, that's great. But again, we're just going to be observing in this scenario, so we don't need fancy equipment for them to use. If they're typically using a mouse, make sure you have that available. Not everyone is used to using a trackpad with their computer. And if you can record the session, as I said, that's great, but it's not really crucial. One of the ways that we've done it is even using Zoom. You can set up a Zoom call and it'll show their screen and their face. That can be really awesome. And then it also allows you to have stakeholders call into that call and observe, muted. But that allows them to see firsthand how the test is going and also take away their own observations and insights. So this is Adam's phone. We're going to use that today. He was nice enough to let us. 5th step, almost there, sidekick. This is very important. So as I mentioned, you're going to have someone administering the test. So they're going to stand there and engage with the user. And then you're going to have someone kind of in the background, like a good sidekick. And they are going to be taking notes. So anyone that is good at taking notes and can see pretty well is going to be great for this role. So this can be the project owner. It can be anyone on the project. This is the one case where that's acceptable. They can be a business analyst, marketing expert, graphic designer. I will say, as a designer myself, I found it really, really, really impactful. I'm going to be positive about the way I frame this, but it was a really eye-opening experience the first time I watched someone use something I designed, because they hated it. They wrecked it. They said everything you could say about the colors that I used and the fonts, which is kind of abnormal. Most users don't notice that type of thing. So it's really eye-opening to see what people do and don't notice. Your precious darling of a call-out that you thought was the most beautiful thing ever, they might completely ignore it. So if you are a designer or developer, I encourage you to try to observe or be a part of a user test, even if you're not the one administering it, because it really is just great to see firsthand someone actually using your product and what they have to say about it. You really can't recreate it if you're not there. So who wants to be our note taker? Volunteers? No volunteers? You in the front row. So when you're taking notes, things that you want to look for are just patterns. If you notice that the user is doing kind of the same things over and over, asking similar questions, note that down. Sometimes I've gotten really fancy with tests, and if I had all the scenarios listed out, I would have kind of a pass or fail scenario. So if there was an action that they did that I would say, hey, they did it, they passed what I wanted them to do, just a simple check mark. If they didn't do it, a simple X next to the scenario in my notes, at least would allow me at the end of the test to see, at a quick glance, how did it go? Did they totally bomb, or did they get everything I wanted them to? Step 7, second to last, is just time. As we said, we don't have a lot of that for DIY testing. So we're gonna do just that 5-user scenario, and we're gonna schedule each test for 45 minutes with kind of a 15-minute buffer in between. And this is really important because you'll always have people that show up late or show up early. You'll have people that take a lot longer to complete the test, or some that just run through it really quick. But no matter what happens with the user, you want to make sure that you have a chance to reset, take a break, kind of rearrange your materials again so that you can start fresh each time. You also want to do these back to back so that you can just kind of knock them out all at once. This also keeps everything fresh in your memory when you're taking notes, so that after the test you can go away and put together a report, which we'll talk about in a minute. You want to make sure that for each test, you start with some kind of icebreaker. As I mentioned earlier, user testing can be really awkward for the person on the other end that's doing the test. Often they'll feel judged because you're watching them do something and seeing if they fail. So we always remind them that we're testing our product, not them. They can't do anything wrong in this scenario. So it's good to reassure them of that throughout the test. It's also good to kind of introduce them to what they'll be doing by having them practice it. So I won't do this today, but we have a series of kind of silly books that we use. One of them is Where is the Poop? It's a children's book with little flaps where you look for animal poop. And we'll often use this or something similar where it's a little disarming because it's just funny or silly. And we'll hand them the book and we'll say, I would like you to find the poop. And as you do this, narrate your thoughts. You can start with, I open the book. And what this does is it allows them to see the example of what you expect and then to practice it without feeling like they're under the gun or anyone's judging them. So often they'll laugh, it'll be kind of a fun thing, they'll flip through the book. Sometimes they might get silent because they forget they have to narrate their thoughts, so this gives you a chance to practice prompting them. So what are you thinking now? What are you doing now? So that they kind of get used to the pattern before you actually start the test. You can also tell them they can ask questions. This is one that you will get. They will ask, what do I do next? What do you want me to do? Where should I click? Oh, did it die? Sorry, technical problem. So they'll ask you questions throughout the test because that's just what we do. When we aren't sure where we should go next or what we should do, we're going to ask the person that's doing the test. So there are a couple different things that you can say in that situation that'll help, and I'll go over those in just a minute once it comes back up. Don't know if I need to do anything on my end. I'm still plugged in. So one of the things that we can do during the test to ask, so if they say, what should I do right now? There are kind of a series of questions that we'll show on the screen in a minute that help deflect from answering that. One of them, oh, here we go again. One of them is, what would you expect to do? So I just ask the question back to them. So this way they feel like they're being heard and don't get frustrated with you because you're just sitting silently next to them, which can be a very frustrating situation. Here we go. And they'll ask, things like, do I need to continue if they get to say a part of the app that's not fully built out or that looks broken, or they encounter a bug, which will happen. You can say things like, for the purposes of this test, let's pretend that that's not there. Or for the purposes of this test, you don't have a phone, so you can't call customer service, because often that is the first thing people will do when they get frustrated using your product. They'll just say they would call someone. Another one that you can do, if they get too far into the task and they're just kind of floundering, they might either hand you the device back or just like, I'm leaving, I'm done. They'll start to get mad, is you can just say, do you feel you've completed the task? So a lot of times it's hard to determine the end of a test scenario. So one of the things I'll do at the beginning, if I know that this is one of those tasks that might go on for a while, is tell them when you feel you've completed the task, say, I'm done. And that just lets them know that at any point they have an out. If they feel either frustrated or they feel like they've done it and you're just not getting it, they can say that they are done. This will happen a lot. I've had all kinds of different interactions with people. You don't know where they're coming from in a true user test when you've just recruited people. They could be fresh off of work, they could have been stuck in traffic or dealing with kids. So you get a lot of different feelings, personalities in these situations, and it's good just to be really flexible, open-minded, but also, and I skipped over this, you're a scientist. You have to be very objective. So it can be really hard, as I mentioned earlier, watching someone talk about your product in front of you and saying negative things about it, or asking you, what should I do, when you know very well, click the button right in front of you, like it's very obvious to you. It's really hard not to talk. But that is a very important part of this process, is to just remain silent, calm, and not influence the test if you can. So last thing, and most important, is to report our findings. If we did all of this and we don't gain anything from it and we don't have anything to show, what was the point? So during the test, as I mentioned, we are going to watch for patterns, anything that users keep doing repeatedly or say about the product, and those are going to be turned into things that we can change. Any issues that come up or things that went well. It's very important during a user test not only to record things that went badly, but the things that went well, because we want to make sure if we are doing things that are working for the user, we continue to do that or repeat it in our product going forward. We also want to make sure to discuss these things immediately with our team. If people can't be there to observe, like I said, on Zoom, or Loopback is another tool that we've used, it's really great. If they can't be there to observe, it's really important that you report back to them right away, while everything's still fresh, to be able to talk about what you saw firsthand, so they can kind of understand it, and also be included in the process of deciding, how do we fix this, or how do we improve this based on your findings. It's very much a group effort in that regard. If you don't have a group or a team to work with, that's okay too, because if you were lucky enough to be the person administering it, also observing it because you didn't have a sidekick, you still have enough there to put together a list of takeaways or things that you can do. These are some examples of reports that we've put together that I'll show, but they don't have to be fancy. A simple bullet list of here are the things we saw, here are the things we're going to do can go a long way. These are just some examples of different reports. We try to make them pretty because, as some of you might, I'm sure, know, stakeholders and people in management like pretty. They like numbers. They like to see charts and data. And that is one thing that we can take away from this process as much as possible. It's also the hardest thing to argue with. If we have recordings of our tests, which again, don't have to, but it is nice, it's really great when someone, a stakeholder, for example, says, we've always done it this way, we have to continue doing it this way. And you can show them how badly it went doing things that way. It's very hard to argue with that kind of data. So having it is great. Any types of percentages, like I said, things that can kind of sum it up, roll it up to a high level. This is going to be great for the stakeholders, management, but things for the dev team, again, simple bullet list. Just here are the things we need to change, here are the issues we saw. So that wasn't too painful. That was 8 steps, and now we're actually going to try it out. So if you'll give me 1 second to get my computer. Adam is going to come up here, and we're going to do this user test.
Hi.
All right, so we're going to pretend that I have already done the icebreaker, which, again, really important to have something to kind of make the user feel comfortable. I'm just going to write my scenario on a piece of paper. You can print it out, you can do whatever. It doesn't have to be fancy. Typically, I'll have these stacked in order. So like I said, 5 tests is really great for that 45-minute period. Let's pretend we had 5 of these. I would just hand them to them, ask them to read it out loud, and then hand them the device to start the test.
You've moved to a new town and need a new doctor for regular care and yearly physicals. Use lexmed.com to make an appointment.
So I'm realizing you cannot see this.
There it is.
Sorry about this. Y'all can't see my... There we go. Okay, so I'm going to hand you the phone to complete your task. I'm going to hand you the phone to complete your task. When you feel you have completed the task, let me know that you're done. Okay. You can ask me questions during the test, but I may not be able to answer until after.
All right.
It's important to frame that they can ask questions because they will, and it makes them feel bad if they ask a question and then you don't answer. So just prepare them for that.
So I'm looking for a new doctor for regular care. Find a doctor is right in the middle of the screen. So probably start with that. Oh yeah, you can't tell me yes, that's right. Okay. I don't know a doctor's name. I guess we'll go with specialties first. Get the gender.
What are you thinking right now?
I'm looking for primary care, but I'm not seeing a general practitioner or anything other. Alphabetical, okay, nice. Psychiatric, no. Still looking. Surgical oncology, no. Urgent care, nope.
Pause. So he scrolled right by primary care after he said the word. That will happen. That kind of thing will happen a lot. And you will sit there silently and watch. Unpause.
All right, well now I see it, so I'm going to click it. All right. Jet lag's serious, y'all. I'm sorry.
We're not testing you. We're testing the product.
Yes. The local one to where we are in South Carolina. I think that's I think that would be the closest one. Irmo might actually, well, Northeast might actually be closer. This is a thing where I might pop out and Google it to know which one was closest to me.
Pause. In the new interface, we've added a map. Unpause.
I didn't know that. That's cool. All right. I don't guess there's any more information to put in, so I'll just click find. Oh, sorry. Is find doing anything? My phone might be glitching on me. Oh, I see.
Pause. So that was a great observation if you caught that. He clicked find repeatedly. He didn't see anything happen on the screen. He assumed it was broken. That is a major flaw in this design. I actually didn't notice it until today because I got a new phone. So interesting. Unpause.
Well, I've never seen anything like this. Contact a patient. Like, see what they think about the doctor, okay? I'm looking for make an appointment, but I'm not seeing that at all. 0 doctors found. I need to change something. Okay, we'll try other location. All right, 2 of them.
Pause real quick. So I mentioned very early on that it's really important to let the user fail. This is another situation where it's also really important to present a realistic scenario. There are actually not primary care doctors in the area he selected, so I was just able to see how he would react when he had 0 results returned. So that's a useful observation. Unpause.
Okay. So I see phone numbers here, but I was going to try to do that without doing that. I don't have there's a phone number again. Find a doctor is how I started this. And I don't see anything other than the phone numbers. If I click this, what do we got? All right, there's Edward Goley, mid-D. I'm still being very tempted by that phone number. I'm an elder millennial, so I don't really hate calling people. It's okay with me. Oh, make an appointment. So I have to log in. I don't have an account. What is this going to do?
What would you expect it to do?
It did what I thought it would, make a my chart. See, at this point, I am mad and thinking about leaving, but I might just use that phone number that was in the previous one. Should we call him?
Is that what you would normally do?
It might be, maybe.
Do you feel you've completed the task? Pause. So in a lot of situations, as I said earlier, like people will get frustrated and they'll say, I would just call, because that is a totally valid option. In our scenario, we asked them to make an appointment online. So he did notice some very small text, I'll point out, that mentions something about appointments. Oh, thank you for zooming in. I'm not sure how he saw that because you've actually never seen that in this scenario. But be prepared for that kind of thing. He scrolled past a lot of the right answers for solving this and still kept coming back to the phone number. And that is totally fine. What that told me about this interface is that the main action I asked him to do isn't mentioned anywhere on this screen. The only way he could make an appointment was by going to this login and creating an account to then make one, which is a really frustrating and a long process. So ultimately, calling would have been the fastest thing for him to do. But because I didn't phrase it that way in my scenario, he also just wasn't sure if that was right. That was very purposeful because I wanted to see what choice would he make. Like, what did he prefer? Calling? Would he go through the process of using the form? All of that is valuable insight that I can now take away and say, well, let's make that button say, make an appointment instead of log in. Let's add a map to the search so people can see if that doctor is actually close to where they live instead of giving them a list of cities. A lot of these things just from this 3-minute test will allow me to improve this product a great deal. Any other questions for me? This is something I always try to do at the end because they will have them.
What are you doing later?
And that has also happened in a user test, but he's my spouse, so it's not creepy.
Oh, it's a little creepy.
All right, so that is the end of our demo here. But if you found that, thank you, Adam. But if you found that interesting, we have a whole blog post about this that you can find here at truematter.com/NDC. We have several posts about user testing. And that one specifically is a post called DIY usability testing. It's not perfect. It is a very quick and messy way to do things, but ultimately I'm going to learn more from testing with a person than just going off of my own assumptions. So this really allows you to see kind of real world how people are using your product. And I really encourage you to consider doing this. It's very easy if you have a company that's bigger. If it's small and you're just by yourself, you're a freelancer, this also still works. You're able to at least get some insight, like I said, into how people are using your product, where they're failing, where they're succeeding. And I encourage you to try it out. Thank you. And I will be around for questions. I know I wrapped up a little early, so if anybody has any, please find me. Thank you.